This is the continuation of chapter 3, a most important one, where Jeziel himself, with the teachings of his childhood on spirituality that saved his life, brought him to a new phase of his own life. Now set free by the Honorable Sergius Paulus, he is now left sick and alone at the beach of Palestine. Well, he has a bag of money, and that bag of money actually attracted the attention of a man who intended to take that bag of money for himself and possibly kill Jeziel. Well, he asked, "Please do not kill me, my friend." And he got to know that that man was Irenaeus de Crotona. Irenaeus had only interest for the money himself, and Jeziel understood it and gave him the money. It was when he asked Irenaeus to bring him to an inn or some place, a pension or something, where he could really be taken care of. And he recalled of the men of the way at the city and introduced him to another man named Ephraim. Ephraim was friends with Simon Peter. And he got to know that Ephraim was going to visit the men of the way, the house of the way in Jerusalem. And he asked him to kindly take him to Jerusalem as well. Once there, he was well received, welcomed, taken care of. He spent 2 weeks into deep fever. And during those illusions, everybody in that house of the way observed that that man, the unknown man that was brought in as someone who was very sick, actually was very well versed in the scriptures. And as soon as he recovered, he was brought to the attention of Simon Peter, which is one of the most important dialogues, something that is really touching and can really be revealing to the character of this spirit that is presented to us by Emmanuel. In the conversation with Simon Peter asks him who is he and how come he knows of these teachings of the scriptures. And he says that he was taught about them. He comes from the tribe of Issachar and is well versed in them because he learned about them in childhood. And he says to Simon, I sincerely studied the whole Testament, and my father was very devoted to that as well, and my mother. And however, Isaiah has always impressed me deeply because of the beauty of the divine promises he bore in announcing to us the Messiah, whose coming I have meditated on since childhood. Well, Simon Peter smiled happily, while lively satisfaction, and said, "But don't you know that the Messiah had already come?" Emmanuel says that Jeziel had an improvised chair, and he was taken by unexpected surprise. "What do you mean?" he asked anxiously. "Haven't you heard about Jesus of Nazareth?" "No, I haven't." "Well, the prophet of Nazareth has brought us the message from God for all time." And Simon Peter, eyes lit with the luminous flame of those who are happy at remembering the time of blessing, spoke to Jeziel about what the Lord had done, sketching a perfect oral biography of the Sublime Master. What was Jeziel's reaction? He was in complete awe. He really dove into the new teachings and the understanding about the coming of the Messiah. And he asked Peter, "And the Messiah, where is he now?" "Well, over a year ago," exclaimed the apostle, "he was crucified right here in Jerusalem between 2 thieves." Well, and Peter talked about the innumerable sufferings of Jesus himself. It was when Jeziel recalled a passage in the scriptures that talked about the coming of the Messiah. And as interesting as it is, he was amazed about the whole experience, and he asked Peter if he could in some way and form get to know more about the story It was when he was given firsthand some teachings that were written by Matthew. Now we open a parenthesis here because scholars have said that these scriptures were written in 70 AD. This is year 35. So here we have a revelation by Emmanuel that actually those were written in the year 35. In 1941, when this book was written, no historian was aware of this until more recent years. So here we have a very peculiar understanding of the history of the time that is revealed by the mediumistic hands of the medium Chico Xavier. A study that will sometime be published by the scholar in Spiritism, Haroldo Dutra from Brazil, that is unveiling the many details of the history that we're studying here and now. But besides that point, what was Jeziel's attitude before the new truth that the Messiah had already come? Well, he was moved and he wept. That loving and good Christ hanging on the cross of human ignominy was the personification of all the heroism of the world. Well, he got to study it. He got to help as well in the House of the Way. And once he did, he became quickly famous for the healings that he was an instrument of. He became also the healer of the soul, an instrument of Christ himself. And he was very welcomed by Peter and the other disciples. Now, a question for us and an exercise. First of all, how do we face the new truth when it's presented to us? As Jeziel was introduced to the truth of the coming of the Messiah and his deeds and his message, he easily understood it. Flexible as he was, spiritual as he was, he welcomed that without resistances. How about us? When we are presented to the truth, do we still struggle with it? Let's reflect on this. To make it easier on us, we would suggest that you take a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper and outline what are your most common reactions to when you're presented to the truth in any circumstance of life. Do you resist? Do you accept it? Do you struggle? Do you welcome it? Let's meditate on this as we now prepare to understand the upcoming chapter, chapter 4.